here we go. 6-1. Circles and circumference. Okay. How many of you are familiar with either one of those? And we'll just say, I guess we'll talk about pieces and parts of a circle. And okay, so not many. Okay. That's good. All right, so let's talk about a circle. What do we call the green dot? It has a name to it. No, it's not called a dot. Center point. Or sometimes they just refer to it as the center, but center point. Okay. Number 2. What do we call a line going from the center out to the outer circle, or the outer circle to the center? It doesn't matter. No. Okay, on. It's called the radius. You need to know all these. It's called the radius. All right. What do we call the yellow line going from one side of the circle through the center point, moving on over to the other side? Ian? That is called the diameter. That's correct, sir. All right. Last one. If we, and I'm just so you can see this visually, if we start here and go around the circle and end up at that point, Chase, that is called the circumference. Okay, now what do we, listen carefully here. I know I'll give you a minute to write that down. I know you're labeling. What do we call the circumference of an object that looks like that? Listen to the question. You might want to listen. The red figure there, the red rectangle, what do we call it if we want to find the distance around that rigid object, Zach? Okay, it's called the perimeter. So listen carefully. When you have straight lines, if they want to know the distance around the object, it's called a perimeter. All of a sudden, when we have curved lines, we now change the terminology and say, ooh, find the circumference. Does that make sense? Circumference is just a fancy word to say find the perimeter of a curved object. Chase. Okay, everybody good with the terminology? Everybody good? Okay, let's talk some formulas. The diameter is equal to 2r. What's the 2r represent? Ian? Okay, the radius multiplied by 2. Very good. It's 2 times the radius. It's twice the length of the radius, right? You can see that on the screen, right? The blue line is the same as one of the yellow lines to the center point. Make sense? Formula for radius would be radius is equal to, Brady? Nice job. Very good, sir. Diameter divided by 2. Very good, sir. Absolutely correct. It's just the opposite. So given the diameter, how do you find the radius? You divide it by 2. If you're given the radius to find the diameter, you multiply by 2. Okay? So far, so good. Okay, the pieces and parts. Those are the 2 form. We're going to throw one more formula in here. I mean, those are pretty simple. You multiply by 2 or you divide by 2, whichever one you're trying to find, right? Okay, you're going to have to find, this is like chapter 4 a little bit. Remember fractions, decimals, and percent. You kind of got to go back and forth. Okay, this is similar between radius and diameter. Okay, and that's not hard. You just got to flip back and forth between the 2. All right. So here we go. Question. Oops. Sorry about that. First one. We're going to start off easy, obviously. Okay, they give you a picture. They don't always give you a picture, but there are a lot of pictures in chapter 6, which is good. Pictures are good. Okay, if they're asking you to find the radius, what's the radius? Just yell it out. Okay, 10 feet, right? Because to find the radius, we take the diameter and divide it by 2. Radius is equal to 20 divided by 2. That gives us 10. Are you allowed to use your calculator? Yes, I told you from here on out, you're allowed to use the Desmos calculator. That's fine. Okay, because we're going to get into pi here in a minute. You're going to need it. Okay, because it would take you too long to crunch the numbers. All right, very good. Moving on. Find the diameter. Formula is this. Emma? Correct. Okay, diameter here would be 2 times 7. So the diameter here would be 14, 14 meters. Notice how the lengths always have some sort of measurement on it, right? Okay, and yeah, we need to label them. That's important. Okay, so far so good. All right. I don't want you to think that they're all pictures because sometimes they will give them to you in words. Okay, now I will tell you this. To my opinion, it is important in the world of mathematics. I think any math teacher along the way will tell you this. If you can draw a picture of whatever they're asking you, I think I've shared this with you in the fall. Very good mathematicians and problem solvers, and you don't even have to be in the world of mathematics. But if you can, draw a picture. Okay? Your brain works better with pictures than words, believe it or not. Okay? So obviously we're talking about a circle, so we draw a circle. They tell us that the diameter is 16 centimeters, and they're asking to find the radius. So radius is equal to diameter divided by 2, 16 divided by 2. The radius is equal to 8 centimeters. Listen, I know it's pretty easy at the moment, but it's going to pick up here. Okay, everybody good? So it's not going to be all pictures. I just wanted to show you that, hey, they're going to give you words as well. Okay, we good? All right. Circumference is equal to perimeter. Just don't have straight lines. Okay, those two words are interchangeable. Now, I'll be honest with you, I don't think I've ever seen them ask you to find the perimeter of a completely circular object. This doesn't make sense. The word is circumference. Okay. Later on, we're going to start getting into shapes that have half of a circle and straight lines on it. And they may say just find the perimeter. That's fine. Okay. They're not going to say find the perimeter and the circumference. It's too much. It's going to be one or the other. Okay. All right. With circumference, you are going to use 3.14. Okay, that is pi, right? And how do we say pi? It's simply pi. It's not PIE, we're not eating. Pi is pi. Okay, we do know that the number pi goes on forever, yes? Okay. In the event that you push the pi button, you know what the pi button looks on a calculator, yes? Yes or no? Okay, it looks like this. That's what a pi button looks like. Well, I agree. You don't have a pi button on the Desmos calculator. That's why you're using it. If you pick up an ordinary calculator, scientific calculator somewhere, okay, it has that button on there. Do not use it. You will get the wrong answer to your problems all the time. Why? Because it calculates more digits than 3.14. Right? You are going to get a different number than everybody else that uses 3.14. So please do not listen again. I highly recommend you use a Desmos calculator. Okay? Because you can't go wrong. There is no pi button. Okay? But if you go home and you pick one of these up, just plug in 3.14 and use it. Everybody good? All right. So circumference has a formula. Circumference is equal to pi times diameter. Now look at that. That goes all the way back to chapter 1. Okay, you have a big letter C is equal to pi d. That's chapter 1 right there. And we're all the way now in February, which I told you. You can't forget what you've been taught. Anything side by side means we're going to do what mathematically? We're going to multiply. You don't need numbers. Okay, now technically, in this case, pi is a number, right? So technically, it really looks like this. Correct? Okay, but normally, math people don't write that. They know that pi is 3.14. We write it that way. Okay, so far so good. All right. Everybody good with circumference, the pieces and parts, and understand what to use, what not to use? Everybody good? Okay. Okay, this is what a typical question is going to look like. Find the circumference of a flying disc, and look what it says at the end. Okay, now I can't say that it's on every single problem that you'll ever see, but it's on most of them. And why do they put that? Because they all want you to get the same answer. They don't want you to use the pi button. They want you to use just 3.14. Make sense? And if it's not there, okay, and some of the questions, it may not be there. Please don't sit there and go, what do I do? I don't know what to use. Yeah, you do. 3.14 is it. Okay? All right, so now here's our flying disc. Doesn't that look like a flying disc? 5 inches. Uh-oh. What's wrong with the picture, if anything? Michael? Okay, that's correct. They're not always going to make it easy on you. Uh-oh. Well, now, before I even start this process, I got to find this. I can't use radius. I got to use the diameter. So now you learned how to convert that to diameter, right? That's going to be what? 10. So now I can do 3.14 times 10. Make sense? Right? And whoa. Circumference is equal to 31 4/10 inches. Do I need to label my answer? Yes, please. Yes, please. They'll always give you some sort of measurement. Yes, please. Okay, one thing that I do want to interject here. When we're talking about the radius, are these, well, maybe I should do this. R squared or 2R, are those the same thing? Okay, very good. They are not the same thing. They are drastically different. Very good. Because this is a common mistake that happens. Okay, let's just say, well, our radius was 10, or our radius was 5, right? So if we plug in 5 here, we get 25 here, we get 10 here. Drastically different answers. Okay, that's good that you recognize that. Don't make that mistake. That's good. Okay, a couple more. I just want to show you this. You don't, I'll show it to you. Let me write it here. Oh, E. Okay, what do you notice that's different on that question? Emma? Okay, sometimes they do this right here. Look at this. Whoa, well, no, they're not trying to trick you. Let me explain. 22 over 7, if you were to plug that in your calculator and divide it, guess what you would come up with? Yeah, it's correct. Now, the reason that they put this in here, okay, listen, I'll be honest with you, I don't want you to use it. Just use 3.14, but I want to explain so you know what it looks like. The reason that they put that in there, if the diameter is a multiple of 7, they generally put in 22 over 7. Does that make sense? Here's why. Let me show you. Circumference is equal to pi times diameter. Looky here. See why they do that? Yeah. So now what do? Cancel, cancel. You put a 2, you get 44 feet. Okay. They use this if the diameter is a multiple of 7. Listen, if it's not a multiple of 7, your life is going to be miserable using the fractions, right? That's why, once again, use the calculator, use 3.14 for everything. Your life will be better off. Everybody good? Everybody good? Yeah. Jeez. All right, last thing. Semicircular region. Whoa, what does that mean? That just means a half circle. That's what that means. Okay, let's talk about some markings here. Semicircular region. Now, I will tell you this. Guess what is the most often missed problems on quizzes and tests? You got it. You got it. And here's why, in my opinion. There is no written technical formula for a semicircle region. There isn't. Let me ask you this. If you want to take half of anything, what do? You divide by 2. That is correct. See, the math world just expects you to know that. This isn't difficult. But guess what most of you don't do? 2 things. You don't divide by 2, and I'm going to show you, you don't add something back in. Okay, so just watch. All right. So again, we're talking circumference, right? That's what we're talking. So that was pi times diameter, yes? Okay, if we want to find this is for a whole circle, is it not? How do we find half of it? You divide it by 2. That formula right there in the black, you won't find in a book. They don't give it to you. Just what you all told me what to do. You divide by 2. You should be able to take half of something. Okay? So far, so good. Okay, so here we go. Let me show you the most common mistake when figuring out. Again, this is what this means. We're starting here. We're figuring out the perimeter of the object. In other words, you're walking all the way around the object, right, to get back to the point. It'd be no different than it said, go find the perimeter of your yard. What would you do? You'd start at one point, you'd walk all the way around it and come back to where you started, right? Okay, so we have 3.14 times the diameter. What's the diameter? Very good. That would be 6. Okay, so when we crunch the numbers, let me do the math here for you. The circumference is 18 and 84/100ths. Now, this is where some of you are going to make your mistake. 18 and 84/100ths is what? Kahan. That is correct, sir. That's the circumference for the entire circle. You don't have an entire circle there, so you've got to divide it by 2. There's your first mistake that you'll make. So we divide it by 2. We get 9 and 42/100ths. Now listen, this is where you're going to make your second mistake. 9 and 42/100ths is the distance from what to what? On the picture. You got to listen, man. This is where most of us miss. 9 and 42/100ths is the distance from where to where? Logan? It only involves the curved part. If I'm finding the perimeter, again, this is where the second part, this is where most of you miss. Guess what? I forget to add in my diameter because I want to find the circumference of it. So then I add those together, and now my answer should be 15 and 42 meters is the circumference of the entire semicircle. Does that make sense? Those are the 2 places where you're going to make your boo-boos. Okay, you're going to forget to, let me highlight them. Yeah, let me highlight them. That's better yet. Where's my highlighter? Ah. Here's one boo-boo. You're going to forget to divide by 2. Here's the second boo-boo. You're going to forget to add back in the diameter. See it all the time. Okay, I'm just making you aware of that. Don't make that mistake. You want to see another one? Or are you good? Okay, the last thing that I do want to show you, just so that you're aware of the markings. Okay, like we just had, if it just says that, then that means that they are talking about the diameter from there to there. In the event that you see a semicircle that looks like this, that means what? That means that they're only talking about the radius. Correct. They're going from there to there. Okay. If there's no markings on it, then they're talking about the whole distance is the diameter. Everybody good? All right. Let's see here. Lesson 6-1. Homework, I believe, is 5. What did I say? 5 through 23. And don't forget to do the Ed puzzle. Okay. All right.